pilots, welcome back to the channel. This is Nix, and today we're going to jump into our F-16 and we're going to go over some beginners tips for SEAD. So you love your F-16, it's really good at shooting stuff out of the sky, it's really good at dropping bombs, but one of the things it's definitely the best at is SEAD, so suppression of enemy air defenses. And that's where you take your systems like your ELINT Pod to track down enemy radiation sources and fire harms at them to suppress them and or destroy them. HARM is a high-speed anti-radiation missile. So let's just jump into it. There's a lot to this, and there's a lot of technical and advanced, but we're going to try to keep this bare bones just to get you in the cockpit and get you hunting down those enemy radars successfully. So for starters, we'll have the ELINT Pod equipped to the front of our Viper, and that would be this little tube right here to the left cheek station, and on the right cheek station we have our targeting pod. And you want to make sure you have those turned on. So this is your left cheek station, you have to make sure this one is on. You can use the targeting pod in junction with your ELINT Pod if you want to, but we're not going to get deep into that. We're just going to use the ELINT Pod. And we are in an active pause now. So first thing we do is we turn our master arm on. We go to air-to-ground mode, and then we power up our HARMs, which is the AG-88s here. We'll power those up and then go back to the HSD so we have good situational awareness. Over here, when we go to air-to-ground, it'll turn our radar into ground radar. And we're going to skip that. We're going to hit FLICUS twice, and then we'll hit HAD. So this is the ELINT Pod interface now. We're going to hit our DMS down once to soy it. So on this interface now, when you're flying around, this will show all the radiation sources that your ELINT Pod can pick up, and it'll start tracking them. Just like your radar warning receiver here, it is tracking radiation around you too. It does that, it just does it way better. And you can also use the data that it creates, a track file with your ELINT Pod, and pass that off onto your HARMs so that you can then shoot at it. You can use the seeker head on a HARM itself to fire, and I will show you what that interface looks like here in a little bit, but it's not near as good, it's not as accurate. Using the ELINT Pod gives you way more flexibility on your shots. Alright, so we're going to unpause now, so we're going to start cruising forward. And you can see on our HSD here that we do see some enemy systems up here. When they show up on your ELINT Pod, like right there is that S. So what that is a search radar. And with our system SOID, we can scroll our cursor on our ELINT Pod around, and that is just our waypoint recreated. So that is a search radar. It's just an S, it's a standard search radar. That could be one of many different kinds of search radars, but for now, let's just say it's a standard search radar. We're going to hit TMS forward short to lock it, and I'm going to pause again here now. Okay, this ring now that showed up is the effective range of your HARM. So if that is inside that ring, you can fire your HARM at it, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should. You never want to fire at max range unless you have to. Another piece of information is that it turned red. When it turned red, that means it handed off the track file onto the HARM. That means the HARM and the ELINT Pod are now connected. If it stayed white, that means there's something wrong with your HARM. Mainly, you probably haven't powered it up. At the top, we're not going to worry about any of this information except for this one right here, this PGM5. This is the positional accuracy metric for your HARM. It starts off at a 5. It's a 1 to 5 scale. So what you want to do is you want to triangulate the position of that HARM to get that PGM all the way down to 2 to fire. You can get down to 1, but that requires multiple Vipers, data linked together, so we're not going to go through that right now. If you're out there just on a server hunting down SAMs, just worry about getting your PGM down to 2. The way to do that is the ELINT Pod is receiving all this radiation, right? And it's slowly creating a track file for that radiation. So you want to change the angle that the radiation is coming at the ELINT Pod to help it triangulate in that position quicker. So we're going to unpause, and what we do, which also you can also see, let's turn our, you can also see where the position is roughly. So we're going to roll to the right, and we're going to offset to the right to create that angle. Now, if you fly directly at a SAM, you can still get a track file, and you can still get the PGM to come down, but it's going to take longer, which means you're going to have to get closer, which is dangerous. So you want to get your PGM down as quickly as possible. So we're offsetting to the right, and now we're going to kind of straighten out right here, and we're just going to hold this position until the PGM starts moving. Another thing to note is there's other things. Look, let's unlock this for a second. I'm going to active pause again. We're going to unlock it. You can see there's also another thing there now, and that is a dog ear. So that's another radar. It would be the Borka on your map, and it's got a PGM of 5 as well. So if we triangulate this search radar and this dog ear is close, if we get a 2 on this, we're probably going to have a 2 or a 3 on this, because even though you've only got one of them locked, so that's what it's concentrating on, it's still collecting and maintaining and tracking everything that it's picking up data for, all the different radiations it's connected to. And you can see right now it just went to PGM of 4, so it's getting better. You also see it bouncing around, and that's because the ELINT pod is trying to narrow down that position. So let's go ahead and relock that search radar. And let's unpause and keep cruising. So if you can't get a SAM, if the SAM's not turned on yet, which is the case a lot of the time, the enemy will keep their SAMs turned off until you get closer. Go ahead and start a good track file on a search radar that's probably near those SAMs. And because the PGM did go down to 4, I'm going to go ahead and reposition again. We're going to start coming around to the left. And you can see we're very far away. There you go, PGM of 3. We're just going to keep this mild turn. We're going to offset to the left until we have a PGM of 2. If we get that far. It might come down to a PGM of 2 before we even finish our offset. And of course, because we have a PGM of 3 on that search radar, the PGM on the dog ear is probably roughly the same. So once you get a good triangulation on everything in the area, when the other stuff turns on, you're going to almost immediately, or at least really quickly, be able to get a solid PGM track file on whatever turns on in that area, because we've already got things triangulated directly on it, which means the ELINT pod can now reference everything. Alright, I'm going to pause it one more time. So you can see now we have a PGM of 2. So that search radar we know is basically right there. It's very close. Let's go ahead and unlock that search radar, and let's see what we got on the dog ear. So the dog ear we have a PGM of 3. So not quite as good, but pretty close. So if we lock that up, and we continue our offset to the left here, unpause it, it's not going to take as long to get that dog ear down to a 2. And be ready to fire on it. And that is how you triangulate with your ELINT pod. I'm going to go ahead and pause it one more time, because some SAMs have now turned themselves on because they know we're coming and they want to try to kill us. So there's an active pause. We're going to unlock the dog ear. So normally a brand new radar source would have a PGM of 5, right? But because this SA2 is close to this stuff, you can see it's already got a PGM of 3, so half of our triangulation is already done. Now when a number appears like that in your ELINT pod, it says 2, which means an SA2, but it's not one of the launchers. The SA2, you just have to know your SAMs, which I suggest getting knee boards that has SAM information for you, or looking up SAM information and get your own references for it. I put it in my knee boards. I'll show you that in a second. But this is the track radar. So a lot of SAM systems have one singular track radar that does track files for all the SAMs connected to it. So if you kill the track radar, the SAM is now dormant and neutered, and you don't have to worry about it killing you anymore. It can't fire. So this is the main target you want to kill. You can kill the search radar, and that's fine and dandy, but it's not super important. You want to kill the track radar for the SAM unit you're trying to kill. So we're going to lock that. We're going to continue on our merry way of triangulating this until we get a PGM of 2, and then we're going to pause for a second if it's not shooting at us to go into tactics. Actually, we can go into tactics now, just in case we do get shot at. So to fire your harm, just like anything else in the military, it's not creating a 100% chance of success, because there's no such thing, but it is about using all variables that you control to give yourself the highest percentage chance to be successful. So the higher the angle the harm is coming in, and the higher velocity that the harm is coming in, the better the shot is, because it won't be intercepted. And if your PGM is 1 or 2, it'll also be really accurate off your ELINT pod. So the best way to do that is a decent altitude, depending on what you're shooting at, and a high speed. You never want to fire a harm under Mach 1. And you also want to be closer to it than your max range. And what that'll do is if I fire at this SA2 and it's out here, then by the time the harm gets there, it's going to be coming in really flat and low, trying to stretch its ability to get there. So you want to get closer, and you want a high speed. So when the harm shoots up going that fast, it's going to get there super quick, and it's going to turn down and come down a lot steeper onto that SAM site, and at a much higher velocity. And mainly that's because the enemy might be using GBIs, standing for ground-based intercepts, like a Tor Gauntlet or a Panseer. They have the ability to lock on to your harm and know that they have an incoming missile and attempt to shoot it down. So the higher the angle and the faster it's moving, so you want a really high angle, high velo, the higher percentage chance you have of that harm getting through their GBIs and shacking that target. Also, if you're fired upon, defense is extremely important. There's a couple things you can do. You can notch it, beam it, which means you're going to turn directly parallel from the radar that fired on you, because radar cross sections have a hard time seeing things when they're moving directly perpendicular to their angle that they're scanning you with. Also, missiles are not shooting at you. They're shooting at where the radar predicts you're going to be. So you use that to drive the missile into the ground as your best defense. So if you're up high and they fire a SAM at you, don't go defensive immediately. Give it a few seconds to get up in the air, because you want it to get some altitude. SAMs don't shoot straight at you. They shoot up and out and then come at you. And then you want to turn and roll down and start diving into the ground, because the missile's not trying to kill you, it's trying to kill where you're gonna be. And if you're moving quickly towards the ground, the radar thinks you're gonna hit 2 miles underneath the ground. The radar doesn't know about the ground, it just knows where you're heading, and it'll drive that SAM directly into the ground. If you can't drive it into the ground, you can go cold and hit your blower to try to outrun it. And you also want to use chaff, which is how you stop a radar missile. Flares are for heaters, chaff is for radar. And the most effective way to use chaff is directly in the notch. So you want to look at your ELINT pod, look at your RWR. We know from where our RWR is that at this angle, that SAM, which we can also get a reference right there, that SAM is right here somewhere. So we would want to turn and head almost north, dive to the ground to try to drive it into the ground. And as soon as we get directly perpendicular to it, we want to start dropping some chaff balls behind us, because that's where chaff is the most effective. Leaving chaff behind you isn't that effective, but if you hit a notch and it causes the radar to kind of start not being able to track you very well, but it sees that the chaff will stick out way more. So that's the best way to be defensive. So if you get shot, those are your options. So what we're going to do now is we're going to finish this shot. We're going to triangulate this SA2 until it's a PGM of 2. Once we have that PGM of 2, then we're going to go nose on, and we're going to hit the blower, and we're going to make sure we get up to Mach 1 at least, and then we're going to magnum our harm off. We are at 28,800 feet, so we're almost at Angels 30, so we're at a really good spot for an extremely high velo, high angle shot. So let's unpause it. We're going to stay mil power, and we're just going to stay locked on to that SA2 at this angle. There we go. We have a PGM of 2. We are ready to shoot. So here's what we do. We're going to roll into that SA2. We're already close enough, mainly because we're extremely high. We're going to hit the blower now. And we should be, we don't even have to worry about going defensive probably. I don't think the SA2 is going to fire on us from this range. Well, here we go. He's going to anyway. Alright, Magnum 1. We have Mach 1. We have got good parameters. Magnum 1. And let's go ahead and fire onto that dog ear too. You can see that we know that that's the one that's tracking us, by the way, because it turned red. Magnum. Alright. We're going to go defensive now. It hasn't fired on us, so we don't have to try to drive the missile into the ground. We're just going to go perpendicular to try to blind their radar a little bit. So from here now, you can see we're perpendicular. I'm going to go ahead and lay some chaff. And I'm going to maintain my altitude for now because it hasn't fired yet, and I want to keep some altitude. That way we can drive it into the ground if they do shoot, and also so we don't have to use a bunch of fuel to climb way back up. And let's check our harm. You can see it's coming down pretty steep. It's coming in real fast. It could have been a better shot. I could have been all the way up to Angels 30 and going a little bit faster and got a little bit closer, but this is a pretty good shot. A GBI would have a little bit of trouble tracking this and shooting it. Also, AGM-88s do a lot of splash damage, so we'll probably get a decent amount of secondary damage on this. You can see that radar is right there. We had a really good track on it. Direct hit. Alright, that SA-2 should be dormant now. Give it some time. You see, there you go. Now, there's different colors on here. Yellow means it's there and it's operational. So the dog ear is turned on and it's emitting radiation. Red means it's actively tracking us, which means if something's shooting at us or tracking us and it's red on here, we know that that radar is doing that. If they turn green, like that one just did, green just means it's no longer online. It could be destroyed. They could have just turned it off. There's no way to really know unless you use your targeting pod. You can also see now all three of those radars are no longer online, and that's probably because they're all dead, because we fired 2 harms into there. So the other thing you can do is you can lock up that, and that creates a SPI. And if you don't know what SPIs are with your targeting pods, you should definitely learn that. But once you have it locked, that automatically turns it into a SPI. So what we're going to do is roll over here. So to verify or do a BDA, which is Battle Damage Assessment, we want to verify that the radars that we killed did not just turn off to try to trick us, because certain hardcore servers, stuff like that are really difficult, they will do things like that. They will shut off radars, they'll make you think they're gone, you'll fly close, they'll turn on and shoot a SAM right at you. So we're going to verify. All you have to do is if you have it selected where it was, that the ELINT pod has a track file, so it knows right where it was. If you just turn on your targeting pod will be looking at that location. So then we're going to DMS down to select that. Well, it should be looking there. Oh, I lost the... sorry. There's that search radar is back on. See, the search radar is actually back on, so it didn't actually die. And I'm not sure why that's not working. Oh, wait, there it is. So you can see it was looking in the general direction. It wasn't exactly where it should have been, but it was close. I just wasn't looking very good because the clouds are breaking up my ability to see it. Go ahead and switch to white hot here. So that's where that radar was. Looks like it's definitely dead. The dog ear is dead. The search radar survived, but that's okay. We don't really worry about the search radar so much. And you can see when I select the search radar, the targeting pod tried to get close to it, so that's probably the search radar right there. It does look like the search radar. And that'll allow you to do BDA and verify. You can also do that to verify that you fired on the correct target or there's other targets. So you can see that's where the track radar was right there, and it's dead, the low blow. That's pretty much all there is to it. Grab your harms. You don't necessarily have to worry about using your targeting pod to check things. That's just something you can do if you have a targeting pod equipped. You can remember, just if you have it locked up, turn your targeting pod on. It'll be looking there. If it's not looking right, make sure you didn't lose your lock. Relock it, and that'll re-slave the targeting pod to where you're looking. Now, the other thing, that will show you. I don't recommend using this, but you can if you don't have the ELINT pod. Or maybe you're having trouble with the ELINT pod for some reason seeing a radiation source. You can just skip the ELINT pod and use the seeker head on the harm itself, which is the way the Hornet would fire them. The track file just off of the radiation source directly on the harm is not as accurate. You'll probably be okay as long as you're, within a good range and everything, because the explosive damage on the harm is quite big. It's a large warhead, but it's still not as accurate as firing from the ELINT pod. If you have an ELINT lock down to PGM of 2, that's where you can do those really high angle, high speed shots that are going to come down really hard and real accurate. But if you have to, you can just come down here with air to ground selected and the harm selected, just come down here to weapon, and this brings up the interface of the harm itself. And you can see it's got numbers right here. So if you it has numbers and letters. These are the same symbols that are signifiers in your RWR and in your ELINT pod of what the thing is. So SA-10, that's a grumble. This would be what the track radar would look like. A big bird is the SA-10 search radar. The clamshell is another radar for the SA-10. Here's an SA-11. So you kind of have to know what you're looking for, because if it's not on this list, it's not going to show up. And you do have other lists. You can hit search. You can remove one. So if you know you're looking definitely for just the SA-10, you can deselect all of these. And now it'll be able to find the 10 a lot quicker. The other thing you can do is you can go to table, and this will switch between the next table. So there's table 2, so there's 19, 15, 8, dog ear, and table 3's got SA-3, search radar, 6, 2, 13. Basically everything you're going to need to shoot at. There are some that are not on these 3 tables. You can add and remove stuff from the table, but we're not going to get into that tonight. Just use the 3 tables if you have to, but again, I would suggest not even using the system at all. Let's see what kind of radars we do have back here. There's an SA-8 and an SA-19. So let's bring up a table here. This one has a 19 and an 8. So let's turn off, whoops. Let's go to search, and we're going to turn off the 15, the dog ear, all that. Now we're just looking for the gecko and the Tunguska. And we're going to soy this screen by hitting DMS down till it's boxed. And let's come back around. And we still have our waypoint where that stuff was, where we had the other targets selected, so we know about where to look. We also have the information, of course, on our data link, which that is the most important screen you have in a Viper right there, is your data link screen. It gives you all your situational awareness, so get used to it, get to know it, get comfortable with it. So all we're going to do now is, we're not going to get super high because a gecko and a Tunguska are SHORAD, they're short range. The gecko's a little bit more longer range, but not very long range. So we're not going all the way up to 30,000 feet because they probably won't even turn their radars on if we're that high. They might, but it's not dependable. So we're going to stay down here at 15,000 feet. We're just going to fly at them until our seeker head sees them. Which right now we can also see that they probably don't even have their radars turned on, because we're not even getting a radar receiver warning. Let's go ahead and hit the blower, because we kind of flew farther away. And again, there is more to it. You can get into the weeds with technical stuff when you're doing this SEAD stuff, but what I'm explaining to you and teaching you here is going to be a really good foundation, including the defensives, how you go defensive, and also how you pull those shots off. The high altitude, high angle, high velocity, high velo shots are extremely important, because when you're out there, a lot of times enemy SAMs will be defended by GBIs like a Tor Gauntlet or a Panseer. So you'll just shoot a harm and it'll never get there, and you'll be wondering why. You'll shoot Mavericks and they'll never get there. You won't know why. It's because of those. So if you see a 15 or a 22, that's your primary target. Those are the GBIs, and you want to kill them first. And to kill them, there's the gecko. It's on. So, and there you go. It just appeared. So we're going to put our cursor over it and lock it. Magnum 1. we're not going to fire on the gecko. The gecko is getting ready to shoot at us. So we're going to go ahead and do what we do. We're going to start leaving some chaff behind us, and we're going to notch it. Alright, we're notched. So it's not a guarantee, but it makes their radar a lot harder for them to lock onto us. So we'll just leave a little bit of chaff behind us. There's that gecko right there. That looks like a really good shot. That was a direct hit. That's pretty good. And we'll wait for that thing to pop off of our RWR. And there you go. And now you can see the 19 is now turned on. So what we could do is we'll roll over. And let's go ahead and point, because we have to point our nose. Because the harm is just sitting there on the pylon. So we got to point the harm towards where the radiation source is. And we're really close now, so we don't want to get too close. And it looks like the 19 is still not showing up on our harm, and that's... Okay, there he is right there. Oh, I lost it. There he is. We got him. Magnum 1, and we're out of here. Now we're going to go fully defensive.
Chaff flare, caution, caution, chaff flare, chaff flare. Full up.
And we're going to burn out of here so we don't die. And there you go. Hit on the Tunguska. And it looks like it did not kill it. And again, that's because we're firing from just the harm itself. It's not as accurate of a shot. It probably hit on the ground near it. Yeah, see? It hit right here. But if we would have locked it up with the ELINT pod and got a good PGM, I'll guarantee you we would have had... It's not a guarantee, but we're talking a 90-95% chance it would be almost a direct hit. But there you go. We fired our 4 harms. We killed pretty much everything we wanted to kill for the most part. We no longer have any munitions besides air-to-air, so we're getting a warning, and that's because we're in the wrong category. We'll switch over to config 1, cat 1. That cleared it all out, and we're good to go. Alright, pilots, get in your Vipers, throw some harms on there, grab your ELINT pod, and get out there and start getting used to the interfaces. It's pretty simple to use. Remember your defensive tactics. Remember to maintain situational awareness of where all these radiation sources are so you can notch them, you know, more effectively. Again, it's not about becoming invincible or doing everything perfectly. It's just about giving yourself every advantage you can possibly get as best you can, and you'll have a way more success, and you'll survive a lot more as soon as you start doing that. And I'll see everybody in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you got some good information. And again, I know there's a lot more to it. This is I'm trying to keep it a little bit more basic as a starter. This is enough information for you to be successful hunting SAMs, though, in your Viper, for sure. Take it easy, pilots.